It's just past midnight on November 13th, 1942. The sea is dark and restless off the coast of Guadalcanal. Waves crash softly against the hulls of 13 battered American ships. On the bridge of the cruiser, USS San Francisco, Rear Admiral Daniel Judson Callahan steadies his nerves. His task force has been hastily assembled from the remains of earlier battles. Despite the damage and exhaustion, Callahan knows there's no turning back. The mission is clear: protect Henderson Field, the only American airstrip on the island. If it falls, thousands of Marines and the entire Guadalcanal campaign could be lost. Far away in the storm, two Japanese battle cruisers cut through the waves like shadows: IJN Hiei and IJN Kirishima. Towering steel beasts, each 3 times larger than the American cruisers, followed by a dozen destroyers. Admiral Hiroaki Abe stands aboard the Hiei, studying his maps under a red lamp. "Prepare for bombardment," Abe orders. The Japanese fleet readies to strike the American airfield before dawn. But suddenly, his radio operator's voice cuts through the storm. "Sir, rear guard ships report enemy contact up ahead." Abe frowns. How could the rear ships see enemies ahead? Something is terribly wrong. "Contact the ships and confirm their position," Abe commands. But confusion spreads. Destroyers are out of place. Radar signals are faint. The formation is unraveling. At that same moment, Callahan's fleet pushes blindly through the dark, knowing the enemy is near. An aide shouts, "Sir, USS Cushing reports an enemy up ahead." Callahan's heart stops. Up ahead? That shouldn't be possible. "Tell Cushing to stand by to open fire," he orders. But on Cushing's bridge, the captain mishears the order. Instead of preparing, he shouts, "Stop and stand by to fire." The mistake throws the line into chaos. USS Laffey, right behind Cushing, slows to avoid collision. Then the next ship, and the next. The front of the American line becomes a slow-motion train wreck as vessels try to avoid ramming one another in the pitch-black sea. The cruiser, USS Atlanta, is 5th in line. She reacts too late, turning hard to port to avoid disaster. The maneuver saves her hull, but now she's veering off course, drifting out of formation and into open water. "Sir, contact to the east. 3 enemy ships spotted," comes a cry. "The fleet is trapped in confusion." Meanwhile, the Japanese struggle too. They're loading shells meant for bombardment. Incendiary rounds, useless against armor. Officers rush to swap them for armor-piercing ammunition as reports of enemy sightings come in from every direction. Admiral Abe needs eyes on the enemy. "Activate searchlights," he orders. Blinding beams slice through the darkness and reveal USS Atlanta, alone, off course. The ocean erupts with thunder as both sides open fire. Atlanta's gunners respond blindly, firing toward the lights. Their shells find targets, but enemy rounds slam back, tearing through her hull. Callahan orders, "Odd ships fire to starboard, even ships fire to port," hoping to bring order. But confusion reigns. Ships fire in every direction, unsure who they're hitting. USS Atlanta becomes trapped in a deadly crossfire. She unknowingly targets the smaller Japanese destroyer, Akatsuki, hitting it again and again. The burning ship glows in the dark until fire reaches its magazines. A massive explosion rips Akatsuki apart in a blinding flash. The shockwave rolls across the battlefield. Admiral Abe stares in disbelief at the sudden loss. "Cease attack! Pull back!" he orders, extinguishing Hiei's searchlight. The sea falls into darkness once more, lit only by the glow of burning wrecks. On the USS Laffey, Commander William Hank spots a shadow, a monster emerging from the dark. The battlecruiser, Hiei, 20 times their size, bearing straight toward them. "Dear Lord, open fire!" Hank yells. 5-inch shells bounce harmlessly off the giant's armor. "Full flank ahead! Emergency power!" The Laffey surges forward, trying to dodge the oncoming behemoth. The two ships pass within yards of each other, the Hiei's steel tower rising like a cliff beside them. Hank braces for impact, but somehow escapes. The Americans fire everything they have at Hiei's superstructure. The smaller guns tear through her bridge and communications decks. Inside, Admiral Abe is struck by shrapnel, bleeding but alive. His chief of staff lies dead beside him. Still, he refuses to retreat. "Hiei's guns! They're turning toward us!" Hank shouts. Desperate, he fires torpedoes. They streak into the dark, bubbles trailing behind. But the ships are too close. The warheads don't arm. The torpedoes bounce harmlessly off Hiei's hull. Moments later, Hiei's main guns roar. Massive shells streak through the sky and smash into USS Cushing. The cruiser erupts in a single deafening blast, reduced to twisted metal. Japanese destroyers emerge from the smoke, circling and firing into the crippled Laffey. "More contacts to starboard! We're taking heavy damage!" Hank yells. Flames spread across the decks. He knows it's over. "Abandon ship!" he cries, as his crew leaps into the burning sea. On the other side of the battle, USS San Francisco and USS Portland set their sights on the wounded Hiei. "Target that cruiser, fire!" Cannons roar. 8-inch shells slam into Hiei's hull, tearing open her superstructure. The mighty Japanese flagship staggers under the assault. But Hiei fights back. Her huge guns answer with incendiary rounds meant for bombardment, not battle. They explode across San Francisco's deck, lighting fires but causing little damage. "Damage report!" "Superficial, sir. No critical hits," comes the reply. "Keep firing!" Callahan shouts. His cruisers press the attack, pounding Hiei's stern and crippling her rudder. The enemy ship begins to drift helplessly in circles. But then, a terrible twist of fate. Hiei's armor-piercing shells are finally loaded. The next Japanese salvo punches clean through San Francisco's hull, detonating deep inside. Bulkheads shatter, fires rage. The bridge is struck again. This time, the entire command crew is wiped out. Callahan is killed instantly. Amid the chaos, a lone survivor stirs. Communications officer Bruce McCandless, dazed but alive, pulls himself to his feet. The bridge is in ruins, smoke and fire everywhere. Yet he grabs the radio and starts issuing orders with calm precision. McCandless isn't a captain, nor even in the chain of command. But someone must lead. Using only memory and instinct, he guides the crippled cruiser through the crossfire, steering her away from disaster while keeping the formation intact. Moments later, Damage Control Officer Herbert Schonland bursts in, ready to assume command. But seeing McCandless already handling the situation, he simply nods and returns to saving what's left of the ship. Aboard Hiei, Admiral Abe sits wounded and silent. His ship is burning, his guns failing, his crew exhausted. Finally, he gives the order: "Cease bombardment, withdraw." The Japanese fleet begins to retreat into the dark. The second battlecruiser, IJN Kirishima, also pulls back. But the battle has become so chaotic that many destroyers can't regroup. Smoke, wreckage, and drifting ships fill the waters around Guadalcanal. By sunrise, the ocean is a graveyard. Wrecked hulls drift amid oil fires and debris. Hundreds of sailors from both navies cling to floating wreckage, praying for rescue under the rising sun. Later that day, aircraft from Henderson Field spot the crippled Hiei. They swoop in relentlessly, dropping bombs until the proud battlecruiser slips beneath the waves. The beast that had terrorized the Pacific is gone forever. By the end of the day, Japan had lost a battlecruiser, 2 destroyers, and 552 sailors. The Americans paid an even higher price: 4 destroyers, 2 cruisers, and 1,439 men. Admiral Abe survived the loss but returned home disgraced. To many, he had snatched defeat from the jaws of victory by retreating when triumph was within reach. Yet for his men, survival was the only victory left. Though Henderson Field stood intact, the cost was unimaginable. The Americans held the island, but barely. The battle had tested every ounce of courage and endurance they had left. As the smoke cleared over the Pacific, both sides realized something profound. This was not just a clash of ships, but of spirit. Every man who fought that night had stared into the heart of chaos and refused to yield. The war would rage on. Guadalcanal would see many more days of blood and fire, but the men who fought on that November night ensured one thing: that Henderson Field and the hope of victory would live to see the dawn. If you enjoyed this story of courage and chaos on the high seas, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible naval history brought to life.